Hello and welcome to The Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. We're back and it's on the back of Spurs losing on penalties to Paris Saint-Germain. And look, I'm going to say this right now, and a lot of people will get this on the playback, but I know it won't feel like it right now, but there was a huge amount of positives to come off the back of what we've just seen in that Super Cup final against Paris Saint-Germain. You know, Spurs, 3 minutes away they were. 3 minutes away from beating Champions League winners Paris Saint-Germain. And the tactical setup from Thomas Frank all but worked for 85 minutes. And I think what we did see really is what we do know is that the drop-off in terms of what Spurs have on the field to what then comes on is a big problem. And which is why there is such an amount of frustration out there that we know there's a need to do business in this transfer window. But look, helping me go through it, break it down as we return for season 8 of Last Word on Spurs, I've got actors TJ Ramini, Darren Hart, and fresh on the scene for this season, we're delighted to welcome Jim from Oso Spurs into our post-match shows. Oh, what a post-match show to make your debut on officially in a competitive season. And thank you so much already for the audience that are building here to reflect on that defeat to PSG. Look, before I bring the guys in, let's take you through the match facts and the stats. I know many won't want to see these right now, but look, it finished Paris Saint-Germain 2, Tottenham 2 over 90 minutes, and then straight to penalties. PSG edged it 4-3 on penalties. In terms of shots apiece, 12 for PSG, 13 for Tottenham. Spurs actually heading shots on target as well, 5-3. PSG more block shots than Spurs, 5-3. Shots inside the box, Tottenham dominating that figure itself, 9-5. Tottenham busier of the two sides defensively, which was really a key attribute about the game, about how Spurs were admirably so well structured, so well organised defensively under Thomas Frank. 20 clearances to the 15 of PSG, 8 interceptions to the 4. Corner count, PSG had 8, Spurs 3. The possession stat, I know it's not pretty reading for some out there that do want Spurs to be a dominating side under Thomas Frank. We hope that's going to come eventually. But 74% for PSG to 26% in terms of the possession. And then XG, 1.12 for Paris Saint-Germain to Tottenham's 2.04. It just shows you how Tottenham on the night looked the more likelier side to score. Let's start if we can. Let's start with you, Jim, if we can. Because I know it's a real gut punch, this one. It really is. And it's really tough to take because I think the players were superb for 85 minutes. And all I can really put it down to is just they simply run out of steam at the end. It's really hard to not feel gutted about it. Look, I'm gutted for the players. I'm gutted for the manager. I'm gutted for the fans. I think we gave everything and I think we deserve to win. And I try and remain as unbiased as I can as the host of this show. But I do say, as what I said in the opening top of the show, there are a lot of positives to take away despite that defeat. But I do think the substitutions ultimately killed us. But Kudus, Richarlison, Polina, they were exhausted but gave so much. And those that came on really got nowhere near to matching those that started the game. Jim, how would you sum up that defeat to Paris Saint-Germain?
I'd say for 80 minutes, we looked like the Champions League side and they looked like the Europa League side. And like you said at the start, the tactics were spot on. I think when you're going up against the best side in the world, you've got to overload your midfield. But when we saw that lineup and we saw, gosh, like where's the creativity going to come from? I think we've become so fixated on the whole, we needed 10, which we definitely do, by the way, that we're unable to pass the ball forward without one. And this was a reminder that we do have Romero, Van der Ven, Porro, Bentancur, who are all Champions League level players. Spence as well, I think we'll get onto him later, but he showed why he's so deserving of a new contract. And then other good players like Kudus, Vicario, Bergvall, Paulinho, Danso, Sarr, big shout out to him. Like, there's loads of really good players in the squad that did really well tonight. And I feel that whole result was just a bigger sucker punch because we truly held our own against a Champions League, winning side who are there for good reason and deserve that status as the best team in the world right now. And it just hurts so much more because when the narrative and the conversation is all around what we know we need a couple more players in the squad to really take it to that final step that makes it a side that competes against these kind of teams, and we don't have them today. And then you see the subs come on and you think, imagine if that was Morgan Gibbs-White. Imagine if that was Savinho. You think that would have been the 5-10% difference to scraping over the line versus not. So it makes it even more frustrating that we haven't got those in. But I think Frank showed why we hired him. I think he set up in a way that set us up with the best chance of success. He did really, really well. And I would say he's learning too, right? Like he's gone from the biggest game of the week for Brentford as a big Premier League game to a cup final with Tottenham on a big, big stage, knowing how much it means to us. And he's going through learnings too of how to kind of manage those situations, even though I think that's a bit harsh. I'm kind of making out like he's done something wrong. I don't think he did much wrong or anything wrong really today. He had the tools at his disposal that were half fit players in many cases who, if they were even fully fit, I think would have been enough to get over the line. So it is what it is. It just really hurts. But I've said it and I'll keep saying it. We're better than we make out. We could be even better, but I think we're not at this bottom half team that we might feel like we are. We are a top half team that is quite rightly within a good shout of finishing in the top 6 this year, and we showed that today. And if we play out that every week in the Premier League, we will be in the top 6. And I know that's not everyone's ambition. Our ambition is to win trophies. Our ambition is to be in the Champions League regularly. But there was more positives than negatives, but the one main negative of not winning that game outweighs all of that, right? So it is what it is in that sense.
I'm going to steal a little caption that I saw on social media, and the fact is that Spurs have come a long way in this last 12 weeks. If they're getting hammered for not winning a double European trophy, right, in the space of, the last 2-3 months. And I think that kind of tells you that there was, a really good display in there, albeit at the end, I will just say, and I'm a massive, massive Thomas Frank fan. I do feel that the subs undid us at the end. But if I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure really what he can do. I mean, when you look at the bench that he's got there, there's not a huge amount of options, I'm going to be honest with you, to change it. I mean, this is why, again, there's been so much frustration in the Spurs fan base, because you just know that when you look at the bench Spurs have got there, Kinski, Austin, Davis, Vuskovic, Byfield, Gray, Bergvall, Odebertel, Johnson, Solanke. I know, obviously, of course, we've got one of our highest scorers on the bench in Johnson, of course, scored the winner in the Europa League final. Solanke, of course, did eventually come on, but there's not a huge amount to change the game. And that's why I do feel for the manager. I feel, he's shown us what he can do up against Paris Saint-Germain for 85 minutes with that squad. Could you imagine what he could do if he is given a few more experienced quality players? Because like Jim has said, I mean, we're not a 17th place team. I don't think we're a bottom half team. I'd go as far to say that I agree with Jim. I think we're not only a top half team, we could even be a side that can be in and around the top 6 if the manager's given the tools to do the job. Now, welcome back. You've had a nice summer away from us. I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't look too scared to jump back in the saddle. Look, it's hard. I can't do much but applaud Thomas Frank for the way he set Tottenham up, for the effort the players gave us. And we're as Spurs fans used to lose in heartbreaking circumstances. We're just used to, we've been used to and become accustomed to that, of losing in such heartbreaking circumstances. But I think, as Jim said, we've done way better than many thought we would have done with a hampered squad, with arguably not having a designated number 10, no Maddison, as we know, no Dejan Kulusevski, an area where we know for Spurs they're crying out. Now go and get Thomas Frank, some quality players, and back the manager. What did you make of that performance now for you?
You know what? Let's also be real. There was a lot of us that were terrified that we could get battered today. Yeah, there was a fear in most of us today that the best team in the world could absolutely rip us apart. And for 75 minutes, they couldn't put a glove on us. They couldn't touch us. And that part of that, let's be real, and this is me, real football fan, they've only had a week of pre-season. So they're sluggish. We're at the end of our pre-season, about to go into a season. So we should have been ahead. And that showed in the game. But what we have in Frank, which people have been asking for, is a tactical manager who adapts to the team we play against. And Frank put himself against Enrique and went, let me test myself. And tactically, he had it down. The players, every man for a man, did the job he asked them to do. Then the game changed because unfortunately for Tottenham, we're still not quite there fitness-wise. So we fall off and we fell into the low block, which is a danger zone for Spurs under any manager. We just went aside that the low block doesn't work for us. There are other elements that we will highlight throughout the game of individuals and moments and pivotal moments and changes in the game, substitutions, etc. But for me, I walk away with pride right now. I walk away going, if this is where we're at now, where could we be? If we can all commit to this, where could we go? Where could this Tottenham side go? We haven't got the squad that we need yet. And I think today a win may have papered over that and may have gone to our chairman, who we know likes to put the checkbook away quickly and go, no one needs anything because we beat Paris Saint-Germain. We won the cup. We don't need that investment. This really does go, if you give us what we need, you get what you want. Daniel Levy, you're saying it with chest. You want to win the Champions League. You want to win the league. That squad can't do it. Give it more, it can. Give the manager a chance, maybe he could. Because what we've got with Thomas Frank is, he is a smart manager. You can see his intelligence. He has football intelligence. The challenge he's now going to face is he had a week to prep for this Paris Saint-Germain game, and he did great preparation for it. He won't have a week for every game. And that's where he's going to really be tested. Can he make Tottenham perform at this level at different stages of the season when the pressure's on and this squad starts to fall away? Because injuries will hamper it. Because if you're working that hard, which everyone did today, they're going to get tired. And the bench is going to be really maximized. It's going to be needed. So it's exciting, but it has fear attached to it very quickly. And that's what Tottenham has for us right now. It was exciting to see for 75 minutes, we could hold our own against Paris Saint-Germain and go, welcome to the Champions League again, Tottenham. These players can play there. We know they can. But the but is always there. But what if we get injuries? What if we don't get the players in? We could be short again. And that's the fear that is always going to linger when we wear our beautiful badge and we support this beautiful team. Do we always leave ourselves short? Because today, as I said at the beginning of my first sentence was, we feared we could get battered today, but this team didn't get battered. It outclassed, outsmarted, outfought, and showed Paris Saint-Germain and showed the rest of the league, by the way, don't play with us this season. Don't think you're going to run over Tottenham this season. Don't think you're getting a back four that don't know how to defend, because we defended well today.
It was so organised.
Yeah.
So organised.
Organised. And that's good to see.
Yeah. Dale, you mentioned about the injuries. And look, I mean, coming out of you, Tej, the season hasn't started yet. James Maddison's out with an ACL. Destiny Dog is out with a knee injury. Kulusevski's out with a knee injury. Dragishin's out, still recovering from that ACL. Manor Solomon's got a calf injury. We might not see Manor Solomon. Kota Takai, new signing in the summer. He's got a plan to face your injury. Brian Hill's out of a knee injury. I've named some players that aren't really going to be there. But the reality is, as Dale said there, you know, for any side or for any squad that's going to be able to compete, they're going to have to be backed. And Thomas Frank's going to need that backing. I feel for anybody out there that may have been concerned about whether Thomas Frank is up to the level of certain managers like Luis Enrique. We've just seen there across, 85 minutes, matched him toe-to-toe, went there, tactically in elements of that game, outclassed him. And again, it just comes back down to that point now. Over to you, Daniel Levy. Will you back the manager? Because for most of that game, Tej, Thomas Frank had played a blinder. We know PSG thrive on dominating possession by controlling the midfield form when they launch their dangerous balls. They couldn't do that. Thomas harassed them. They pressed them. They got the ball in areas where really we were excelling in creating those big, big chances. You know, he relegated the ball possession to less potent areas, but people will say PSG weren't at their best. But the fact is, it's Thomas Frank that negated a lot of those issues for them. And, you know, let's be honest about it. They're one of the dangerous teams in the world, tactically so set up perfectly. It's a real shame, as we said in the back room, the manager, the players don't get the reward for 85 minutes of what was a really, really good performance. Lovely to be back, Tej.
Lovely to be back on the show and with a terrific panel as always. And of course, like you said, Rick, thank you to the viewers and the listeners who've stayed up late, back in England. And I know that this show is watched all over the world. So thank you for joining us. Of course, I'm disappointed. You know, we were right there and it would have been such a wonderful, no pun intended, crowning moment for Thomas Frank to mark really his first truly competitive game with a wonderful European trophy. And of course, to have our new captain in Christian Romero, who was absolutely, I mean, he was just titanic today, wasn't he? He was superb. And to have him lift the trophy and then to bolster all of our spirits. And to Jim's point, to prove to the world we're not actually as bad as people say we are and love to say we are. I've often said we are the most derided Premier League team in the world. That isn't just my opinion. That's actually a fact. And so, yes, disappointing, but my goodness, like Darren said, we're all imbued with a certain feeling of confidence and pride. And I have little doubt that Premier League teams are going, holy moly, we have underestimated Tottenham. And I really think that they're going to be a very, very difficult team to beat this season. You have to think as well, I've often said this because we've had so many managers coming in and out of the club, that it's very difficult to adapt to a new system. It really is, and a new mentality, a new philosophy, even just a different voice and a different energy. Right, thank you, mate, for joining us in India, 3:45 in the morning. Thank you so much. However, this team under Thomas Frank, it seems to have kind of immediately, like, again, all of us, we were saying on our texts to each other, our chats to each other, the comments here, people sending so many comments to me on X about our structure and our shape. Everybody looks like they just kind of know what to do already. I remember saying that, I think it was after that dreadful Reading performance. But again, just the shape of it, everybody sort of seems to know, well, this is my job under this manager. And I was saying to some of my dear friends back home that even players that we perhaps didn't have that much faith in, like Richie, just seemed to really flourish in this system under Thomas Frank. And I'm not saying that Ange wasn't a much-loved manager and wasn't a person that people had great admiration and affection for. But it just seems that for whatever reason, whatever Thomas Frank is trying to impart, they've managed to absorb that immediately and then put it into action. As we've all correctly stated, it was the substitutions that killed us. But again, I don't think you can put that on Thomas Frank either. Mohamed Kudus run himself into the ground, and my goodness, he is electrifying. Mendes didn't fancy him at all. And what I loved as well, to a man, is that we showed PSG no respect, none. It wasn't like we were stepping into the arena with the greatest, most dangerous team in the world. To Jim's point, if you had to pick which one of these teams won the Europa and which one of these teams won the Champions League, it was Tottenham that were on the ascendancy for 85 minutes. So I'm really proud of the display, and I'm excited about what this team is going to look like under Thomas Frank. I mean, Palhinha looked fantastic as well. Like, there were so many positives. Spence, I'm sure we'll go through and we'll talk about all the individuals that are so deserving of our praise. But I think the number one individual that is deserving of our praise is Thomas Frank. Well done for coming in and righting a ship that was really in dire straits, and perhaps cruising us very nicely into some pretty generous waters. I'm excited about the coming season.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's, as many people know this, obviously we record the show literally straight after the game. So, I've always tried my best to try and keep some kind of rationale balance. And it is really hard. I mean, I just feel so much for the players and the manager. Football, as we know, is quite an unforgiving game. And it does feel on this one, it is really unforgiving because what this would have done for the squad ahead of the Burnley game, which I don't want that in any way now to have any adverse effect. It shouldn't do. If anything, really, I hope, Jim, I don't know if you agree, because of the nature of how well we played for the majority of that game, do you think that will give the players even more of a lift going into Burnley? Or do you have any worry the fact that we've gone to penalties, obviously been taken, on this occasion it doesn't go to extra time, but just the mental exhaustion of that game, does that worry you ahead of Burnley, Jim, or do you just think the players will get a lot from that ahead of the Premier League opener?
I don't think the players will lose any faith in Thomas Frank over that. But I think there's obviously a physical tiredness that goes with having played on Wednesday night, flying back Thursday, only having a half training day on Friday, and you're into a game on Saturday. That's difficult. But I'd look at the positives that, based on that situation, I'd like to be playing Burnley at home. And that's exactly what we've got. And even those players, I think that we brought on, that people will see the drop off in from the first team. There's still players that the likes of Burnley would, love in their squads, that they'll be their standout players and they'll build a team around in many cases. So it's not that big a deal in that sense. I feel like this whole game there had a bit of a vibe building up to it where you had groups of fans kind of who are still not really fully sure on the decision to move on to Frank, and some people wanted to stick with what we had before. And therefore, it's an opportunity to say, if we'd had that mentality of the last guy, we'd have won this. And other people will go, wait, we'd have been 5-0 down if we'd had the last guy. And then that kind of proverbial loop goes on. And then there's all these kind of, they're insinuating comments. It's like the tactics, the mentality. I don't think we should look at it like that. I think we should look at it as we've got a good squad of players here with a forward-thinking manager who's willing to learn as well. We often look at these managers and we go, this is them at the peak of their powers. No, it's not. Like, these guys are in their positions because they're so driven and determined to improve all the time that they'll be looking at themselves in the mirror harder than we're looking at them on their TV screens. And Thomas Frank will take lessons from that. And this is a big one for him. What an opportunity for him to go straight into a cup final, feel that heat, feel that pressure for the first time. He'll go into it the second time calmer with a different game plan. I don't put any of it on him. I'm kind of implying that this was somehow on him. I think the difference today was the fact that Paris Saint-Germain have 25 players, probably all on over 100 grand a week, who are on those salaries because they can pull something out of nothing. Yeah. And that first goal was just one of those moments. That's why you pay the money for that kind of player, because they can just whip it in so perfectly out of nothing and change a game and turn it on its head. But when we're Spurs, we try combat those sides through having a squad that can consistently outperform them across a pitch with tactics and just kind of mentality or whatever it is. But look, we just didn't have the personnel, I think, to get it up. If you'd given Frank that squad today, would have won that game. If we'd swapped squads, we'd have won the game. Obviously, Enrique had the easier job today than Thomas Frank. I thought the players are brilliant, and overall, I think we can take more positives than negatives. If we'd gone on to win that at a penalty shootout, the narrative would be very different. We'd be all saying, oh my words, this team's so much better than we thought. We're just one or two players away from a top 4 challenge here. We could build something really, really special. Let's go. But it's just a deflating feeling of defeat. That's not Frank's fault, but the hangover from other managers always failing at the final hurdle has rubbed off on us here. And then it's kind of given Frank, I think, a bit of an unfair perception that he's also in that camp. And we know it wasn't always the manager's fault as well. So look, I know it feels a bit like people use the word copium to look for the positives in amongst a defeat because we've been here so many times before. Yep. But I truly feel that there's far more positives than negatives to take away from that today.
Jim, you know what? Following on from that point there, coming over you, Dale, Luis Enrique's just come out and said Tottenham played a great match. They were stronger than us. I don't know if it's a fair result, but that's football. We still have to improve. We have the ability to fight until the end, but we can still improve. And it's nice to hear that from the opposing manager, that a lot of credit goes to Spurs for the way they played, they fought, they battled, but ultimately weren't obviously getting that prize that we all wanted, which is, again, it's a tough thing to swallow when obviously only 2.5 months ago, we did go and achieve the ultimate goal and the ultimate prize, right?
And let's remember that. Let's remember that. We are winners. We are winners. We are the Europa League champions. That's what we are. We are winners. We got the honor of playing this game because we are winners. You don't get this invitation for free. It's not like the Club World Cup where they throw an invitation to rich clubs and invite you to play. It's not one of those competitions. This is the curtain opener to our season. It closes last year's European season and opens up our new season. So there is so much positive we can take from this. This is a Spurs going forward. It's not Spursy. It's not old Spurs. It's his new Thomas Frank Spurs. And it was his first attempt in Europe. He got it early. He got to get the taste early. That's a good thing. He got to test himself against the best. This team battered everybody last year. Absolutely everybody. And we faced them and we held our own. Tactically held our own. This gives the manager confidence. As we've just said, Richard beautifully said, now he's going to grow. He's going to go, yes, I can do this. Now let me focus. Okay, last 10, 15, it fell off. Okay, why did it fall off? Okay, maybe my substitutions weren't right. Maybe I didn't do X, Y. They're analysing like we're analysing. But this is great to do it now, not 4th game into the Champions League when we're struggling. He's doing it early. He's setting himself up early. The camp is setting itself up early. I'm excited. And I think we should allow ourselves to be. And I think we could go on a Debbie Downer right now and go, oh, it's going to be same old Tottenham. No. Tottenham's winners now, team. We're winners. We can't go same old Tottenham because we're winners. You know what I'm saying, Rick? We're winners now. So stay winners. Let's stay with that's right. Let's stay in that mentality because the season ain't started yet. And maybe the football gods helped us out today because we've got Burnley first. It could have been a horrible game first. I predict Burnley may sit deeper on us, so we suddenly have more of the ball. So it's a game where we're not chasing everybody because we're going to have tired legs. Kudus looked tremendous today. Yeah, he looked someone who's up for the fight.
Absolute tank. The tank of the guy. He got an absolute tank. So strong, so physical, so demanding.
Set him free in the Premier League. That's what we're looking to do. And also, tactically, it won't be that set up against Burnley. Because Thomas Frank, as we know from watching him, he sets up according to the team.
Of course.
They're not PSG. We're probably going to have Johnson starting. We're probably going to play different structures. And that's what we're here for. And that's what it's about. So let's find the positives in it. We would have loved to have won it today. It would have been great to start the season, parade into our neighbours, look what we've got, parade into the league what we've got. But we can still go, there is a lot of potential here. It just needs a bit more.
Yeah, look, we're going to come on
the single biggest difference that I've seen to that point, Darren, is under Frank. Like if I could surmise what's the difference between Tottenham last season and this season under Thomas Frank already is aggression. We were so aggressive. And of course, that does manifest itself in a multitude of ways. It manifests itself in energy and fight and will and desire and speed and passion. But it all stems from being aggressive. Yes, Kudus was magnificent. Sarr was magnificent. Spence was magnificent. Romero, terrific. Van der Ven, fantastic. Richarlison, fantastic. And so perhaps if I can just focus on him for a second, a much derided player by myself included. You know, is he good enough to be Tottenham's number 9? No, but like one of my dear friends back home and said, I know it wasn't a facetious comment, it was a genuine comment. If you don't sort of look at him as an out-and-out goal scorer, he's actually a really important player for us. And I think the reason why he is already flourishing under Thomas Frank is because what Thomas Frank demands of all of the players that play in our system. And again, to Jim's point, no one's going to look at PSG's side and Tottenham's side and go, Tottenham have a better team or a squad than PSG. But you can just outwork people. You can out-harry and harangue and harass people. And Richarlison is always going to give you that, man. Always going to give you that. If you were in a bar with Richarlison and you're having a drink and a nice chat and all this kind of thing, and it's suddenly kicked off, I'm telling you, he's not looking for the back door. I promise you he's not. And listen, you know, we've been in situations like that, right? And something kicks off and you look around and go, what are we going to do here? And your mate's gone. Like, you know, he's never going to be that guy. And so the fact that so much of what Thomas Frank is trying to build is this kind of unified, aggressive, never say die attitude. I promise you that's infectious. However, what it also does is it's very revealing for players who lack courage, who lack heart, and who lack the tenacity and the aggression to go in there and to stand up and be counted. And like I was saying just before the show started, I'm sure we'll talk about it. There was one person today who really didn't show that level of dedication and commitment and courage. And it cost us massively. But I'm sure we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, look, we're going to quickly squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners and audio. Look, we know it's a very, very late night. There is already over nearly 15,500 of you that are watching the show live. Look, thank you so much for your incredible support for Last Word on Spurs as we go again. And thank you as well to a lot of the love I received. I had about 100 DMs from people that saw us on TNT Sports. I don't know myself that was coming, but Jim messaged me and said, Jim said to me, was we on that night? And even Jim has probably lost count of the amount of shows he's done already.
When did we preview the game? I was thinking, my phone's blowing up. Like, you're on TNT, mate. And I was like, am I? No idea what's going on, but yeah.
Last one of Spurs, Jim. It's a roller coaster. You're on these days, you don't know what you're on. I tell you. Thank you so much for all the support out there. Like I say, if you can give this show a like and a subscribe, share it out to the wide range Spurs audience. We greatly appreciate it. Look, let's go through some of the comments we've had already. Thomas Frank has been speaking to the press. We've already touched upon, obviously, Luis Enrique, very complimentary of Tottenham. And Frank's first words were to the players. Frank said, I'd like to thank all the players who were brave enough to step up and take a penalty. And I think you can't get away from that. You know, that's the key. He said, there's no doubt in terms of what we'd like to do with the squad. We want to strengthen. There is absolutely no doubt about that. And Thomas Frank describes Tottenham's performance against PSG as a special operation that he started planning the day after the Bayern defeat. He said, in medical terms, the operation succeeded, but the patient died. Blimey, what an analogy that is, Thomas Frank. What an analogy that is. Look, Matisse Tell, I will just say this now. We're going to come on to Matisse Tell, and I think it's really important that we say this. I think we know we've got a responsibility out there as being probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest Tottenham podcast out there. I say that with, you know, being as humble as I can, that, you know, I don't like singling out one player or executing a player personally. And I think it's important to say at this moment, look, he's a young kid, Matisse Tell, will learn from this moment. And the Spurs fan base, like we always do, we will get behind players, right? I mean, we've always got behind players in certain circumstances. Yes, his penalty went wide. Yes, he can be given criticism. But I have to say just very, very quickly, it doesn't warrant any personal, I can't have to say this, any racial abuse. I'm already seeing, you know, certain comments that do not sit well with me at all. And I really hope it's being dealt with accordingly, because the minority doesn't represent the majority. And whilst we can sit here and we will critique the footballing opinion of maybe the player, when it goes beyond that, as I can tell you as a show, we're not interested in that. So I will just make it very, very clear, because I'm already seeing certain comments that I don't feel sits well with me online. And I think as a show, we've got a right to call that out. And I think we have to call that out because, again, anyone that puts on that Tottenham badge, wears that Tottenham shirt, will always get our support until the day they're no longer here. Frank just very quickly said on the experimental system that I knew that we had to do something a little bit different against Paris Saint-Germain. So it was like a special operation. And as I mentioned, that comment he said, it was in a medical terms, the operation succeeded, but the patient died. Dale, you were laughing when I put that analogy out there. What did you make of that analogy from Thomas Frank? It's an interesting
It's genius.
take on it.
It's genius. It's genius. And what he basically, if people want to see what he's saying deeper, is with an operation, he said everything he wanted them to achieve, they achieved. The last bit was getting that person through. It was a perfect plan, but they died. Of course, that's what he's saying, because we should have won it. With the plan, it should have executed well. But the thing that stopped it is penalties. That part of it, you can't use logic with. And that's why he thanked the players who stepped up. He's not talking about the last 10, 15 minutes of the game even. He's going, look, the plan worked. We outsmarted, we outfought, we put ourselves in a position to win the game. And that's what he was aiming for. He showed that he can go up against Enrique, and he did that. And I think now it's an interesting point, like just segueing over to tell us we're there and opening that door. Like as you said, Rick, Spurs fans, football fans in general, when we have players in our side, it's hard when we don't like what we see. And we're fans and we all have our own eyes and we see it in different ways. Tell had a night that he's going to feel bad about. Anyone who misses a penalty is going to feel bad. Anyone who doesn't feel that they execute what they want to execute is going to feel bad. Even in our walks of life, when we don't do our best, we feel it. I've said it publicly, I've said it privately. Tell as a signing is one that I worry for. And I feel that us as fans are going to be very pivotal in what happens with Tell going forward. Because if you look at it, we bought him and now we're trying to already buy someone to play ahead of him. Now, that must be really difficult for a young man to go, I came here to get first team football. I left Bayern Munich to come to Spurs because they said they wanted me. They're saying they're going to play me. And now I'm hearing everyone talking about someone else being bought to play where I play ahead of me, same age as me, or a little bit older than me with the same potential as me. So it already screams of a man who's going to be insecure, worried, and concerned about his game. So that today may have been a very nervous young man who came on and couldn't do what he needed to do. So right now, let's be careful we don't kill him. And I use that word properly, kill him. Because you do that to him now, we need him for the season. He is going to get minutes for Tottenham. He is going to be a player that we're going to need to rely on at times. So let's not break him today. Let's not break Van der Ven for missing a penalty. We can critique him, but let's not kill him. Let's not break him. That's not fair.
And I think that's the thing, right? I mean, we're only just getting going here. We are. I mean, the thing about I will say about last one Spurs, and maybe it's again, I ain't going to say this. I think we've got the greatest guests on the show, right? I think the people that we've got on this show. I think are great for their football opinions. They're great value what they bring to the show, and. They'll flatter me. Stop flattering me. Stop flattering me. It's honestly, and for me, I just think we all know we've got a responsibility when we come on here with the audience size that we get to be very careful in terms of what we do say, and so it's given out in the right manner. And look, we are going to most certainly. I'm going to most certainly have critiques on Tell's performance, as TJ's said earlier, and we are going to debate that, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think when it crosses that line, that's where I feel uncomfortable with it. And I'm sure we all do. I know we do. I know we all, because I know you guys. I know you all. So, look, we'll turn our attention back to the game itself. Like I say, I mean, there's still a lot of compliments coming in from Luis Enrique for Thomas Frank and Tottenham. He said, Tottenham deserves so much more. They play better than us. And football is just sometimes really unfair. And he said, look, I'm happy for that. But I must say, it was unfair. I mean, so honest. I mean, listen, it's easy being honest when you've won. I mean, look, I'm sure if that result didn't go well, you might be getting a completely different Luis Enrique. But the Enrique we're getting is someone that is very humble and recognises that Tottenham on the night deserves so much more, because you could see that, and it was evident over that 85 minutes. I'm going to take us back, if I can, to the starting 11, which again was going to be highly debated for this one, most certainly. And, in case people weren't wondering, Daniel Levy wasn't in attendance for this game. The notion of what is going around is that Daniel had a pre-engagement to attend where his daughter is starting university in the US, and that is why Daniel couldn't be in attendance for the game. I will also bring to your attention, there is people out there that are suggesting Daniel Levy wasn't there because he is in a certain other part of the world, maybe trying to tie up, if not 1-2 deals for Tottenham. That's what's on the grapevine. And listen, we'll see if those do come to fruition, of course, in the coming days. But in terms of Tottenham's team and the way they lined up, I do want to say that Vinay Venkatesham was in attendance, as was Fabio Paratici in his most animated self, that spent a lot of the time, for those that weren't aware, on the old blower. He was on the phone for a lot of the time during the game. So was Johan Langer in attendance as well. So there was a lot of the Spurs, you'd say, hierarchy, board members in attendance. But Thomas Frank named what for him was going to be arguably his strongest side, what he could put out, given, like I said earlier, the nature of the injuries that have been sustained so far. He did have Dominic Solanke back and available from the bench, while João Palhinha made his first competitive start for the club after playing 45 minutes in that defeat to Bayern Munich alongside Rodrigo Bentancur. He utilised the back three for the first time this summer in order to counter PSG's attacking quality. That meant a start for Kevin Danso alongside Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven, and a great also a moment for 16-year-old Janai Byfield, who was amongst the Spurs sub. So the Tottenham team read Vicario, Danso, Romero, Van der Ven, Porro, Bentancur, Palhinha, Spence, Sarr, Kudus, Richarlison, with a bench of Kinski, Austin, Davis, Vuskovic, Byfield, Gray, Burvell, Odegaard, Johnson, Tel, Solanke. Jim, I'll come to you. I know a lot of people before the game, maybe the back three threw them by surprise. Did it throw you by surprise that we went for a back three, Jim?
It didn't throw me by surprise in the sense I thought Frank was going to set up defensively and go on the counter in the way that a lot of people asked us to do over last season when you come up against a better side, or in a big game. They said, I think what plan B meant in people's minds was, can Spurs play as the low block for once? And can Spurs do what other teams are doing to us in reverse? And when I saw that lineup, I thought, that's what we're going to do today. But what I really enjoyed was, and it matches up with what Frank said, he likes to attack. They came out with pressure and intensity to dominate the game. It wasn't like we were out there to counter-attack and absorb pressure. It was there to pressure the opposition and force them into mistakes and win the game that way. So it was really positive in my eyes from that sense. And it was an adaptation of, we don't have a fit 10. So how are we going to win this game? How are we still going to get the ball forward? And I thought we still progressed the ball really well. I also wanted to shout out to Danso, because I didn't realize we had this long throw in our locker, which was nice to see from him. And I think we saw things like that were just a few small things of, we've identified some strengths of players we didn't realize we have, and we've utilized them already off the bat. And I'm thinking, well, in 6 months from now, we're going to find some more opportunities out of other players of ways we can improve them, because Frank has spoken before about don't always make it about improving young players. It's about improving senior players as well. And a shout out to Bentancur as well. I think Spence, fresh lease of life, absolutely brilliant. Again, he was great last season as well in spells, but that's continued on. He completely warrants that conversation of a new contract. So yeah, the lineup kind of, it didn't catch me by surprise, but it caught me surprise how we played, from a positive sense, that is. And yeah, like you guys have said, like the bench was just kind of, it was such, you look at the bench and you go, I hope this lot can get through 90 minutes, because once we start turning to the bench, it's tough. But it also shows how much we needed to bolster the squad, because last year we were going, maybe Gray's the answer to 6. I think what we've realized is he's not. He's a great young player with a massive ceiling, and a lot of clubs would dream of a player of his ability in your side. But if you want to be competing in the Champions League, you can't be saying those players on our bench today are the answer for our squad today. And that's not a big disrespect to them. I think we've still got good players on the bench. Lucas Berrival is still brilliant and points of last season, but you see his youth at points. You see him. I know we spoke about earlier, like Tell got a lot of stick, but I don't think it was just him. And people have mentioned, Van der Ven missed his penalty as well. And I know we're looking at a performance, not just a penalty take. There's a bigger context there. But I didn't think Berrival did particularly well when he came on, unfortunately for him. But I don't like to throw any player under the bus, because it's not their fault. As long as they give 110% when they're wearing a Spurs shirt, that's all we can ask. If we get the profile of a player wrong, that's more on our scouting department than it is on the player themselves.
Yep.
And I feel like you mentioned earlier, Ricky, like the likes of Tell, he'll be looking in a mirror and no one will be more gutted than him. Does that mean he deserves to be kind of told, don't worry about it, you played well? No, he didn't play well, but I think it's wrong to signal him out as an issue. I think he's got a massive ceiling and he'll be great. He's clearly got a good mentality to get where he is in his life. He's probably worked his absolute butt off to get where he is in his life. And he's had to go from a club as big as Bayern Munich and be told, actually, you're not ready for this level. You're going to a different club who's still massive in Spurs, but you're still miles ahead of most 20-year-olds in your age in the Premier League. And even to get to the Premier League is a massive achievement. But he's got to learn and grow. And look, when we take these players on when they're 24 or 25, they're out of our reach. So the price we pay of getting them earlier is we've got to be going through that journey of development with them. And a lot of that bench is development focused, whereas that first team has some really established senior players. But we do need to bring in some more as well, because you've got to look at the situation of Bentancur as well. His last year of his contract's coming out, right? So that's another senior player to replace. Romero, 2 years left. End of next season, we can't stop it if Real Madrid's go, here's £80 million. That's another senior player you've got to replace. So we've got to get ahead of this by getting a couple of those players in this season, I think. And that would have been the difference today. But sorry, long story short, as Ricky, no, I wasn't surprised by the lineup, and I think he picked the right one.
Yeah, it's quite interesting because obviously the first moment of the game officially kicked off in the Thomas Frank era. There was a ball played back to Vicario, who lumped it up to Richarlison. So it felt that the Thomas Frank era was officially underway. Maybe slightly different to what you're used to in terms of the way Spurs do kick off. I mean, they were playing a kind of 3-4-1-2 shape. Kudus and Richarlison up front, Sarr behind them slightly withdrawn, Dante on the right of the back three. Look, we started fairly well. Like Jim said, we saw that long throw audition from Kevin Danso. And there was, again, a couple of decent pieces of defensive work from Spence and Dembele, Spence, who actually slid into Dembele at one point and obviously helped Tottenham regain possession. And then there was that moment where we saw, Tish, coming over to you, 2 big tackles from Polina in 30 seconds. Yes. He already looked a lot sharper than last week's cameo against Bayern. And he does seem to have this incredible knack. Again, it's early days with Polina. Again, don't want to get too overboard here. He's to have that really good knack of being able not only to win the tackle, but when he's actually not first to the ball. I don't know if that's because he's got top-notch reactions to the extra touch from the attacker or a brilliant anticipation of where the ball will go. But ultimately, it's a hugely useful tool to have when if you're not going to be first to the ball, if you can still win it, that tool's tremendous, right, for us, Teach?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, he's very strong, both physically and mentally, and also he's just very well balanced. Similar to Bentancur. They're just a very well balanced, just, in the true sense of that word, not speaking figuratively. And he's going to be a very important player for us. Listen, to Jim's point about, I don't think we were surprised by the lineup. What was really pleasantly surprising is that, again, being the better side and the PSG coach has come out publicly twice and said that now, being the better side against the best team in the world for 75 minutes with the front three of Spence, Richarlison and Kudus. I mean, that's really, really, it's so encouraging. And again, I think what Thomas Frank brings us, like I said, I just did a whole big spiel about how important aggression is, and then what the byproducts of aggression bring with speed and tenacity and desire and commitment. And again, as far as winning fans over, that's really all it takes. We really want to see you busting a gut. I mean, Sarr, I just think we've already said under Thomas Frank, I just think he is not only going to be a crucial piece of the Thomas Frank Tottenham era, but I just see this boy as putting himself on the map as potentially one of the best central midfielders in the game. He was absolutely sensational tonight. He was just too fast and had too much guile, and again, too much will and tenacity. The amount of times he's just picking people's pockets. He was absolutely magnificent. Now I'm going to speak about Tell very briefly, okay? I totally agree that he's a young man and it doesn't help us to destroy him or to kill him, like Brother Darren said. There's no point in going after this boy personally. I don't think anyone out there could put their hand on their heart and say, he came on with the intent tonight to undo us. He didn't, okay? He's a young man. However, like I said to Jim before the show started, in football terms, he ain't that young at 20. And so you do have to understand you're not playing in a lower team or in Championship or even in a lower league. You are playing for one of the biggest teams in the world. And what was lacking, and I'm going to forgive the penalty miss. I'm going to forgive that. If he is lambasted for missing a penalty, well, why isn't Mickey van der Ven lambasted? I don't begrudge either of them for missing a penalty. However, what I do take exception to is it just looked like a lack of will and tenacity and energy. Of course, you have huge boots to fill when Kudus comes off the pitch, right? So what you can say to yourself, because this is a mental decision, and I speak about this all the time, this is a mental decision. You can say to yourself, before I come onto the pitch, because you're coming on, you're standing on the sideline, the guy's got your number ready, you can say to yourself, I'm going to absolutely kill myself from the moment I get on till the final whistle. It'll probably be about 15 minutes, and I will destroy myself. I will spend the next few days in an ice bar thinking, my legs, my legs, my legs. And I just didn't see that. And that's all I'm going to say about him. Okay? You must show that level of commitment if you are wearing this beautiful shirt and badge that we hold so dear. And that's it. They make mistakes, and I think that's all that needs to be said about it.
I think that's fair too. Again, we said it, not a good cameo. He lost the ball on the edge of his own box, lost the ball a few times, and then sent his penalty wide. Again, not a great cameo. And I think we'd be remiss here to try and say anything but that, because that was honestly the reality of the performance. We can only
There's
really...
no more that needs to be said, Rick. That's it. That's the reality of it. We all saw it. We all know it. But there's no point in breaking him down. He is a Tottenham player. And let me throw this out there, gang. And again, this isn't just, TJ always manages to find the silver lining. Sarr has already improved under Thomas Frank, right? Spence already looks like he's improved under Thomas Frank. Thomas Frank and Cochrane and his entire training staff have a reputation for turning promising young talent into sensational young talent. So let's hope that he will work his magic on Berval, on Archie Gray, on Matisse Tell. And then all of a sudden, this lightweight squad, both figuratively and literally, suddenly looks like a young, hungry, dynamic team that could really help us out when we need them. And that's real Tottenham fans. That isn't me going, let's cut the kid a break. I was very hard on him, and I will be hard on anyone who doesn't try their very best. That's all that needs to be said.
Listen, I think that's right. I mean, I hope when we're going over to one thing down, pivoting a little bit, because this is your era. Well, it's both you and TJ's industry, the acting industry. There was a lot of animation from the bench from Thomas at times. And I think what was quite interesting...
We love a performance, don't we, Darren? We love a performance.
Well, it was quite interesting. It's the level of detail that we saw Frank actually giving to the likes of Spence, brought him over, spoke a lot about the position of where he needed to be. We actually then saw Matty Wells, the assistant coach, also leading a lot of instruction from the bench. And I don't know if anyone's seen this so far. What I would say, and what we've seen in the 5 pre-season games, and in this Super Cup final in particular, is the level of detail that is actually going on during the game. That they're almost, and I'll come to this as well with Jim as well. I'm sure Jim as well will touch upon this on Also Spurs, because they have a weekly segment on there with a coach himself in JJ. I remember me saying, Jim, that they actually do a lot in terms of the coaching aspect when they break it down on there. So please make sure you do go and check that out with Also Spurs. But it's very interesting on this point, Dale, to come to you. He does almost, in a way, coach the players through the game. Could you see that as well? That almost talking them through the game. And 100%. It's very different. Let's be honest about it. Again, no criticism of Ange, because Ange had his way, but very different to what we were used to in these last 18 months.
100%. Very, very different. He's a coach. I use that term very strongly. He's a coach. He is coaching continuously. And that's why his systems will change. And on the training field, he'll teach a method, he'll teach a structure to be implemented in a game. And if it's not working, he will continue to guide. And if it is working, he will continue to support. He's always adapting. He's watching the opposition. He's seeing the changes. He's informing the players of that. Sometimes when you're on the pitch, you don't always see it. It's as you said, I'm an actor, yes. So sometimes when I'm on stage, I may not be catching it all, and my director's seeing it from a different eye and go, Dale, if you said it this way, try it now. Now go for it. I implement it straight away. It changes the dynamic straight away. And that's what you get when you've got a good coach. He can see what his players need and he's giving it to them instantly. And hopefully there's instant change. Now, it's interesting what we spoke about this then about how our squad is development. And Jimmy made a great point about our bench. And what I looked at in our starting 11, which we're starting to get, we're right on the cusp of, is when you look at a player like Archie Gray. He was bought as a 6 and last season played everywhere but 6. Now we have someone ahead of him, Paulinho, who is what I believe to be a true 6. Having that player on the training field with you, next to you, opposite you in training games, being in position to go, how the hell did he get there? Having him in your ear to go, yeah, what I do is, this is what, that will develop this player so much more. Archie Gray has someone to follow, to learn from. And that's what we're starting to have. And I feel that that's where we're at for our development players, having a great coach, but also an 11 that can do the job. So you as a young player can watch. Pap Sarr is a prime example of that. He has watched, he has learned, he's watched Kulichevsky, he's watching Madison. And in that role that he's playing now, between the 8 and the 10, he's going, I can do this now. I've seen these players do it. The coach has given me the freedom. Let me play there. Let me explore there. And it's that confidence. And part of that does come from the man who went before. Because Ange gave him confidence to express. And now you've got a man who goes, oh, I see what you can do. Now I'm going to mold you into a system that allows you to show me what you can do to a higher level. Danzo's throw, we never knew it was there. He arrived last season, never took a throw on. Now we've done it in training. And the coach gone, hello, my friend. Now when I play a back 3, you're my throw on man. You look at Spence today playing as left back, but left wing back. Yes, we've seen it in his career. Suddenly you go, here's a player who suddenly can build up his goal ratio. There were so many moments when he made a run and didn't get the pass because it's a new system. But
bro, I mean, how obvious was the set piece? Like every single time we had a set, including the throws.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like every single time we had a set piece that was about sort of 35. I mean, we even had a set piece where Vicario took it from inside their half.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know,
great
that
tactic.
just immediately has illustrated that there are certain things under the Thomas Frank school of coaching. You're absolutely right, mate, to use that word really succinctly appraised as you always do. But it just immediately showed us that there are definite, irrefutable systems that are hard and fast under Thomas Frank. And I just think that this squad, this team has gone, oh, okay, boss. And I think that level as well of group cohesive understanding has bonded them in a way. It didn't look like a team that have only been playing together for a short amount of time. And again, still a lot of these guys are pretty new to each other, but they looked really, didn't they, Rick? Just
100%
they looked
agree.
really kind of connected and unified.
It looked like
You were talking about the pride that you felt.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it comes from that, when they play for each other with great will. And so again, the drop off from that, so if the intent and the will and the tenacity and the commitment is there, you have to come in or even go above. If you drop a little below, we're all going to notice you.
The greatest compliment I can pay them, they look like a team. And it's crazy when you say that, because they've played
that's it.
5-6 times together, and they've not even played the cohesive 11. Let's come on to, you mentioned about set pieces there. Let's come to you, Jim. Let's talk about the goal. It's hard because you want it to count for so much more than what it has inevitably ended up being. But it was, again, a great moment, and it's come from the training ground. You can see that it's been worked on, and it, again, was finished really well from Van der Ven. It was actually a great save in the build-up, you have to say, from the goalkeeper, who, to be fair, look, not Donnarumma, it's their second choice, and to be fair to him, he had an excellent game. He really, really did. But, yeah, I mean, look, this set piece does the trick for Tottenham. It's the first competitive goal of the Thomas Frank era. Romero gets the flick on, Polina hits the bar, Van der Ven is there to slide home. It sparks wild scenes of celebration. And of course, as I said, Jim, it comes from a set piece. And clearly one, I'm sure you agree, Jim, it's what they've been working on, right?
Yeah, it was, let's not forget, we hit the bar twice and the post once. So it's one of those other days where you're 3-0 up and it's over. But I feel like, just to finish off the old, kind of comparing the old with the new, I feel like Ange's whole philosophy was built around breaking the system. Like if he was training a boxer, he'd kind of go like, right, I'm going to teach you how to perfect the knockout punch, and that's all we're going to do. And when we get that right, no matter how much someone focuses on their technique and the game plan, we'll just punch through it. Whereas Frank is about perfecting what he knows works. It's about perfecting a system. And that's what we saw today. It was all about, back to fundamentals. Like, what is a structured setup in a set piece? What does it look like? Who needs to be where? Which of our players exploit the weaknesses of the opposition? Let's marry them up together, and let's make sure that we're exploiting every marginal game we can at every opportunity. And it did really show. And I even thought Van der Ven, as an example, was a great one to talk about now because he scored the goal. But I thought we saw Van der Ven taking on a different role to what we saw last year. Van der Ven was brilliant last year, but I feel like he was brought in as much for his ability and pace to handle a counterattack. Whereas today he felt like a kind of quite a measured all-round centre-back that was there for other reasons, and he wasn't really there for his pace anymore, which was new to me. And hopefully that means, by the way, his hamstrings can stay intact better over the course of a season. But yeah, it was very clear. It was that there was that scene where Frank runs out with that, plastic tactics board with all the icons on and rallies them all over and starts showing them that's the image right there. That I thought that was the moment I was like, this is just such a different kind of approach to a game to have seen before. And that's, again, it's not to diss the previous manager, that there's strengths to having the other approach as well in certain situations. But those paid off for Frank. They worked. They resulted in 2 goals, and they nearly saw us through to a cup. So yeah, I could see it in abundance, and I thought the first goal was spot on. You were thinking, this is a manager who's gone, I don't have a 10. I'm not going to worry about it. I can win this through other means, and I can win it because I've got brilliant centre-backs. Whenever you ask Spurs fans to go, who are our best players? Do we have any world-class players? 2 of the first names that come out of people's mouths are Van der Ven and Romero, yet people associate Tottenham with not having a very good defence. And I think Frank's gone, well, if they are my best players, I'm not just going to use them defending, I'm going to use them going forward as well. And that's what he's done today. And there were jokes going around, weren't there, that, you don't need Morgan Gibbs-White. You just need to sign Gahey and whack him as a 10 because we're going to be centre-back FC. But you saw the strengths of how he leveraged them. And I think we'll see that pattern across the Premier League, where when injuries kick in, he'll go, okay, where's my next biggest strength in this squad? And I'm going to focus the team around that this time.
Yeah. I mean, look, in terms of Van der Ven himself, again, it just didn't end for him in the greatest of circumstances. He missed the penalty, but I think overall, at right place at the right time to score. He actually, again, flashbacks to the Europa League final, made an unbelievable clearance at one point where, again, it kind of reminds you a bit of deja vu of what we went through against United in Bilbao. But again, really unfortunate that he doesn't go away the hero. And as T just said earlier, you can forgive a penalty miss because it's a lottery when it gets to that stage. And I think for a lot of players out there, to have to convert a ball from 12 yards, it gets to some. The pressure gets to some. He's not a natural penalty taker. Again, look at Solanke. Bearing in mind Solanke, I'd put it in comparison to Solanke. He's been out for how long? Took the penalty, and he had the most shortest step up I think I've ever seen a penalty taker have. So short, but so clinical in his penalty takers. So look, Spurs, as we know, winning 1-0 at halftime, could have been 2-0. Could have been so close to 2-0. Pinball in the PSG box after another long throw caused chaos. Could have said that effort which hit the base of the post, and Spurs winning 1-0 in what I think we did say was a really disciplined 45 minutes from Tottenham. It was an encouraging display. It was disciplined, but at times bold and brave where it needed to be. So we're going to go for our final break of the show for our listeners and audio. Whilst we do that, we're going to hear directly now from Thomas Frank, who is reacting very quickly to, of course, that defeat. Can you call it a defeat? That 2-2 against PSG where Spurs lost on penalties. Let's quickly hear from Thomas Frank, and we'll be back after this very, very short break.
Thomas, tough one to take tonight. Talk us through how you saw it.
First and foremost, I'm extremely proud of the team, the players, the fans, the club. I think we showed that we can compete, and more than compete, against one of the best teams in the world, maybe the best team in the world right now. And basically for 75, 80 minutes, close to play the perfect match, up 2-0. And that's, of course, what makes it so brutal. And then even we're going into the penalty shootout where it's a flip of a coin. So many positives. But football is about winning. So it's so brutal. But of course, it is in the end key good performances that over time will bring us success. And this was a good start.
And Thomas, fans will be so intrigued as to how you saw it tactically, because tonight it looked like a real tactical battle out there, and the lads had to work incredibly hard as well.
Yeah, but the players put an unbelievable shift in. They worked so hard throughout the game. I think we showed today that we will be tactical adaptable throughout the season, depending on who you're facing. This was a little of a special operation tonight, and operation was successful. Unfortunately, the patient died. But we are so close with everything in the game plan. And football is margins. Sometimes it's margins.
Can we go into that effort a little bit more? Because maybe people at home that watched on TV won't have seen just how much effort was put out there. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, but I think quite a few of the players were cramping because they work so hard. You need to understand it's 28 degrees when the game started, humid, and we need to run and we need to work harder because PSG is a top team with a lot of individual quality. And then I thought we were brave. You saw the amount of time we went high pressure against them. I know we also defended low at times, but we tried to win after them.
And just on top of that, you mentioned the fans a little bit earlier on. They were outstanding tonight. They stuck with the team every step of the way as well.
Yeah, the fans was amazing. It was fantastic to hear them throughout the game. They did everything they could to back us and push us forward. So very happy and proud of that, and we will need them on Saturday as well.
Well, as you mentioned, it's one of those games it's all about victory. But are there things that now, looking ahead to the weekend, you go, I will take that forward?
Yeah, because you can say in a final, you can say in the end you don't care about the performance if you just win. But unfortunately, football doesn't work like that. You need to have good performances, and this was a very good performance. And can we put that together out there on Saturday as well? Then I'll be very happy.
Thomas, safe travels and good luck for the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There you go. That was Thomas Frank there, reflecting on, of course, drawing 2-2 to Paris Saint-Germain. We'll remind you they are Champions League winners. Obviously, on the back of Spurs winning the Europa League, like Dal said, that got us into that competition and allowed us to play that final when we were 3 minutes away from beating them. A couple of penalties away from winning the competition itself, but it is what it is. Listen, thanks so much for everybody staying up for us. There is nearly over 15,500 that are watching the show live. Quite simply unbelievable support for Last Word on Spurs. We're joined by brilliant actors, TJ Romini, Darren Hart. They're back for another season. We've signed them up. We've locked them away. We've got them locked down. And we've also brought in He's certainly not drafted him. We're delighted to have Jim from Oso Spurs with us. Please make sure you're checking Jim out. Oso Spurs, some wonderful content over there. Very niche content that I can tell you will not find anywhere else on the internet. It is that good over there. And they've got wonderful interviews with coaches, different aspects of people that you wouldn't imagine you'd find, but you do find it over at Oso Spurs. Please check them out. Please, guys, keep liking, keep subscribing to this show. Also, can I just say, if Darren won't mind me saying this, the Heartman's also got a Tottenham podcast out there now, dropping fortnightly with our dear friend Ricky J. Norwood. Tea Talking Tottenham. The first episode is out, Dal.
Yes, mate. Tea Talking Tottenham. We're out. We're launching. We've given you the first episode in its bumps and all. It's our pilot. It's mental. But I'm telling you, it'll be good fun. But just to reassure everybody, I'm not leaving here. I'm always going to be here. Just so we're nice and clear. I just miss Ricky Norwood. We don't get to pod as much together. So we just did one. Just to be with each other.
You do realise now, Dal, that was your only chance to get out and you've lost it.
I'm not going. I told you. I'm not going. I'm here for the therapy always. The therapy cape is always here for you. Always here.
Dal's now got me stopped by all the dads tomorrow as he drops the kids off and they're like, yeah, we heard you. Yeah.
I got 2 weeks until we start school.
Sorry,
and I'm good.
2 weeks. Remind me, 2 weeks. 2 weeks away from being harassed at the school gates. So thanks, Dal, for the therapy. Thanks for the therapy. Oh, bless you guys out there. We're here for hugs. I'll take some hugs on the way to Burnley on Saturday, all guys. I'll see you there. Look, we're going to move over to the second half of the game. And I mean, it was again a perfect start to a second half, Teach, coming over to you, because, you know, it almost seemed fitting on the day in which Christian Romero is announced the new captain of the football club. He goes and scores in a moment, again, which was so beautifully done by a set piece. You know, again, there's something about Tottenham. 2 goals from 2 set pieces. It's simple, but it's effective. And it was really well planned from Tottenham and delivered. I mean, what did you make of it at that point, Teach? I would imagine we're 2-0 up, and we are at that point probably in dreamland. We're beating the Champions League finalists, or Champions League winners, should I say. We've just come off the back of winning in Bilbao, and you're thinking to yourselves, this could be 2 trophies in the space of 3 months, Teach.
Absolutely. And, you know, we were thoroughly deserving of it. I mean, we were very unfortunate not to go into half-time at 2 or 3-0 up even. And so when the second goal came along, of course, you know, leaping up and down in my living room, as I'm sure people were all over the world. But I wasn't surprised to be 2-0 up. They hadn't, you know, I don't think they registered a shot until about 70, maybe 75 minutes. So, and what a nice way to cap it off. He's so good in the air. He's just one of those guys. It's so hard to get on the end of those. And he just has the ability to do it. Bentancur again was very unfortunate not to score with his head. Actually thought he should have hit the target. Danzo, you know, had another one where he should have hit the target. So we were very good for that 2-0 lead. I know that people are saying, you know, PSG haven't had a preseason and all that kind of thing, and I completely understand that. But again, you can only play against the team that are standing in front of you, and they are the best team in the world, and we made them look very ordinary, whether they still had one flip-flop on or not. And so was really happy for the captain to find the back of the net. And he was so close to taking home another trophy and another final that he just seems to have a propensity of doing on the regular. I tell you what, man, as far as Romero goes, I think we'll get to another final this coming season, having seen how we just played. I do think that. And I just don't see this man going home with a second place medal again. I just think that he's such a leader. And again, that level of leader are born. There's no one who makes them or encourages them. You are born that way. And he's one of those. And so I do think that if and when we get to a final this season, we take it home, just because, again, that level of belief is so infectious, especially amongst the younger lads. And you can really breathe a different sense of confidence and commitment into a young player when it comes from your captain who's standing alongside you rather than from your coach who's standing on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, look, that point, we're 2-0 up, we're flying, we're getting very, very excited. I will just say there's actually a great record out there of Argentinians to score in UEFA Cup semi-finals. He joins the likes of Messi, Feldman, Sensini, Aguero, Benenga, Ocampos, Vasquez, and Romero's added to that list. So well done to Christian Romero on that. And Spurs didn't really finish there. You know, we saw Porro have a curling deflected free kick, just go wide the left-hand post. There was also a great sliding block with Van der Ven also in the mix as well. And there was that feeling, actually, the game was going on in that moment. It just felt PSG were starting to lose their heads a little bit. You know, you could see Pacho and Barcola having earned cheap bookings. Kvaratskhelia, he was just got hacked down by Van der Ven before he was stormed off after being substituted. Archie Gray primed to come on. A lot of, again, that tactics ball, like Jim said, coming out from Thomas Frank, advising what he was asking the players to do. And again, huge noise, I have to say, from the Spurs faithful. They were brilliant on the night, the Spurs fans, and Thomas Frank very much praising of those amazing fans that made that trip, of course, out to Italy. Those who I really feel for, you know, the fans, because again, you know, we go to games in optimism and hope that you want to see the team win. It's devastating when we don't win, but it goes actually back to, I can just say, Vicario makes a great save before the ball does go in the net for offside. But in that moment, to come over to you, Jim, there's an utterly stupendous block from Kevin Danso, and another example of a player that puts his body on the line quite literally. It hits him where it hurts. It hits you where really it's not meant to hit you. But that kind of summed up the dedication, the commitment for the game, for the manager, for the teammates. And that is why you come away from it feeling gutted. We don't go away with the trophy, right, Jim? Because of the moments like that from Kevin Danso.
Yeah, when he was down the ground, I was like, what's happened to him? And I just saw him, his hand go out and clutch that area of his body where I knew exactly what had happened, and I could feel that pain. We've probably all been there on this panel, being casual football players, but we haven't had to witness it from a world-class player with a 50-mile-an-hour strike or whatever it is. So yeah, he's an example to me of why you don't always need to find the expensive players to improve your squad, and the importance of experience. So you can find these players like him who are absolutely in their prime and they see Spurs as a step up and they're willing to fight for every inch, and they wear that shirt. Like, he gives me vibes of someone like Michael Dawson, who has nothing to do with Spurs growing up. But when he pulls on the shirt, you'd think he was a Spurs fan. You are so proud to be on the pitch as if you're one of us. And from day one, he just got it. You know, some players just get it. They just fit in. Yep. You'll never hear that guy complain, I imagine, over his whole tenure at Spurs. You'll never hear about him being late for training, nothing like that. But there'll be games, it'll be like a North London derby, and he'll be the one who'll put in a crunching tackle in the 91st minute that sees us through on a result. I think he's an excellent signing, and I think he's the type of person we could do with 2 or 3 more. Yeah, he's not going to go and start for a Man City or a Liverpool, but if you're bringing on Kevin Danso type players, in the 80th minute, rather than, throwing on someone who's trying to get these minutes for their, experience levels, it's a very different kind of ball game you're putting yourself in.
It's so interesting, Jim. I'm just going to jump in there for a second. Sorry, mate, because he actually reminds me a bit of Konate. Like, talk about he's not going to start for Liverpool. Konate never looked like he was going to be good enough for Liverpool. But again, I know this isn't a Liverpool show, this is a Tottenham show, but he made up for that, slight difference in quality. Obviously, he's playing against arguably the best centre-back right next to him, just with will and tenacity and dedication and commitment. And that's why he's a player that's come in, and every single Tottenham fan on earth has just embraced him because he gives it his all. And of course, now that other player does play for a Liverpool, and I think that Danso is going to get better and better and better. And I'm really excited about seeing him become what I believe will be a world-class centre-back at Tottenham Hotspur. Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
mate.
you're right.
It was just in my mind that comparison, and when you mentioned it, I thought I'd jump in.
My brother, when I was watching the game, he described certain players as mentality monsters. And like Solanke's
so well
one.
said. That's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
They may be at an age where they can't improve anymore, but they will fixate on how they can get better. And you'll find the way that they'll listen to a coach and they'll just get better. Like Danso has improved since we bought him, I think.
Massively.
And he was already good when we got him.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited by like that signing. I'd love to see another Danso type signing on the left centre back position to give Van der Ven some cover. And then I just wouldn't be so concerned about having injuries at the back. And there's no disrespect to Ben Davies. What a model professional that guy is. But Danso, he's a natural centre back. Ben Davies is a left back who's converted his career to a centre back, always adapted, never complained, wonderful
mentality again.
mentality
again, Jim.
Exactly.
And Davis mentality.
100%.
Yeah.
But you notice it with Danso why he is profiled as a centre back growing up and going through his career, because he's just got these attributes that match it that bit more naturally than someone like Ben Davies would. And by the way, I don't want to start making this Ben Davies thing. I don't think Ben Davies by any shape or form the main issue in a Tottenham squad. But like he epitomizes everything I love about Spurs. And a couple more of those, please, this transfer window. If we could go get if we could get Eze in and Savinho and then another Danso type signing at the back, I think would be set up for a very beautiful season.
We would be. We listen. We know. Are we asking for too much?
It's the big if, though, isn't it, Ricky? It's always if.
It's always if with Tottenham. I mean, it is always if. But we'll just say again, with Danso, you have to consider, he's played on the right. He's had not a huge amount of minutes of pre-season. I think the great thing about is that game itself, he grew into it. He did actually grow into the game. So I think that is a key aspect of it in terms of the fact, you're seeing players that haven't had a huge amount of football, but they are growing into the game itself. Look, this is where obviously it gets a bit trickier, as we know, because we start making changes. We see Solanke and Gray come on for the excellent Richarlison and Polina. And I think T just given Richarlison his flowers. And look, who knows? Is that Richarlison's last, appearance in a Spurs shirt? Who knows? It might be. But if it was, Richarlison put in such a shift for Tottenham, as we touched upon at the start of the show. He started with a few sloppy touches, but he really did grow into the game. His hold-up play, his running, the flick-ons. He was a massive, huge help in Spurs keeping the ball, especially in the first half. I think you can't get away from how much in the first half he really offered us that. I mean, Solanke, of course, came on. He didn't really offer as much as Richarlison, and he looked like someone who really had been out of the team for a long time, Dominic Solanke. And I feel for Solanke because, again, he's a player that, has picked up a couple of injuries throughout his time already at Spurs in this short time. And I just hope for him that's not going to be a trend. I really, really do. Because, these are players that, in the likes of Solanke, he is going to be Tottenham's, you'd imagine, main man up front. I don't see Spurs between now and the end of the window really going to put in a huge amount of money to go and replace that area in terms of the central forward line. So we'll see. I mean, Polino, again, won that. He was told off by the fourth official because he spent most of his time actually since coming off acting as a coach on the technical area, shouting at the players. And I think, again, you can't get away from how bigger this will be for Tottenham. Someone like Polina has been around the block, played now for Bayern, having winning players like that, those, as the guys have touched upon, mentality monsters, could be absolutely huge for this Tottenham team. And I really hope, again, those players like Polina will pick up those other ones tonight, the younger players, and really make them understand, this is not even a bump in the road, but it just goes to show you what we can do if we all do pull together. And we start pulling together. This is where PSG come back into the game. Dale, coming over to you, because Lee Kangin gets a goal back. It's not just a goal. It is a absolutely phenomenal strike, which, to be fair, I don't think Vicario could really have stood a chance on. It's a low drive from outside the box into the bottom right-hand corner. There's obviously only 5 minutes to go. At that point, Dale, are you massively worried, even with 5 to go, we're in for a tough next however long left on the referee's watch?
Oh, 100%. I'm sweating. I absolutely was sweating out. Absolutely. Because, as I said, the game had changed by that point, as I said earlier, and we had gone into that low block where everyone's sitting off. And that's why the substitutions, it's hard to then judge the players that come on, because the system had changed when they came on. And we weren't pushing out. We weren't pressing the way we were. When the ball went up, it was reliant on somebody up there to hold on to it for a few seconds just to kill the clock. It wasn't about progressive football, trying to attack or to overlap or anything like that. The game changed. And I think once they got this goal, of course, we fear the worst, because, as I said, these guys are the champions of Europe. They are the world best team right now. On paper, they are phenomenal. They proved it. So absolutely sweating at this point. And yeah, that's tough. And it wasn't deserved. Before that, they didn't deserve it. And that's why it's harder to swallow and take.
Agree. I do agree. And then obviously, of course, Spurs at that point, they decide to make a couple of changes. Bergvall comes on for Pat Matasar, who, again, as we've touched upon, was absolutely superb. Another great performance from Sarr, who is building really on those impressive displays of pre-season today. And unfortunately for Tottenham at that moment, comes the equaliser. And it's heartbreak, Teach, coming over to you, because, again, we look at the nature of the goal itself and where it comes from. And obviously, the first thing you ask yourself is it avoidable? Could we do anything about it? heartbreak, really. Goncalo Ramos nods in a cross by Dembele deep into stoppage time. Spurs have dealt fairly well with the pressure, but they buckled on that occasion. It was a tight call as Dembele was close to being offside. He wasn't. 2-2, 4 minutes into stoppage time. I mean, at this point, Tej, you can just see the players really, they're dead out on their feet, aren't they? They're dead out on their feet for the ones that have had to
they
obviously
are.
play the
Yeah,
majority.
and I mean, I think, is it avoidable? The second one less so. The first one was definitely avoidable, and that again came from what we'd done so well for 75 minutes, which was closing people down. And again, low block is a term that we've used a lot tonight and heard a lot tonight. I think we're going to have to start now designating and trying to clarify there are all sorts of different low blocks, because I actually think that that's a little bit inaccurate and actually a little reductive, because what we did so well in the first half and again for most of the second half is that because you have somebody like Van de Ven in your back line, it just meant that we could go 1-to-1 with their front players, and it meant that a lot of our other players could push forward, and we were closing them down just outside their own penalty area. So it's not like we were camped around the box. We really weren't. When the substitutions were made, then yes, we did drop deep and too deep. And we just, more importantly than that, we just lost that snap in the tackle. And again, that level of aggression and commitment that I was talking about, that did unfortunately disappear, which was a shame. But we were tired by that point, and the inevitable happened.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, just very quickly on the 2 goals and the nature of them coming in quite quick succession. Will that be a worry for Frank in the way I say the word capitulated, but the way we gave away 2 goals in very quick succession to, in comparison, how well we played and defended over that course of the 85 minutes? Would that be a worry to Frank?
I think it's more of a worry to us fans than it will be to him, and I don't think he should be worried about it. But the reason we find it as a worry as Spurs fans is we've seen this with Mourinho, Conte, and now Frank. So we have almost PTSD of this just being a Tottenham thing, which obviously doesn't exist. It's just a fictional thing we make up in our heads because we're just so frustrated by seeing it time and time again, always being so close and never getting quite over the line as often as we should. But I think from Frank's perspective, he'll just look at it as a completely individual thing. Right, it's my time as a manager. This has happened once off the bat against the best team in the world. And when you review those goals, especially that first goal, I'm like, that's just a world-class strike and a world-class finish. If you're playing any other team in the world, they'll probably miss that chance. If you had put the XG on it, well, for a fact, if you look at, I think the XG philosophy put it out, Paris Saint-Germain had something less than 0.3 XG over the whole game, yet they got 2 goals, which sums up, well, there it's 1, but I looked at another one, they will do it slightly differently. Either way, it was a very low XG opportunity. It was really, really low, and they pulled it off. And that, again, that's just a sign of world-class players who can do things. And that's why those clubs are where they are, because they can afford to go, I'm not going to have one of the best players in the world in a certain position. I'm going to have the best, because they can pull off these moments, and they add the value to the squad by being able to get games over the line, even when my tactics aren't on point. As I said before, if Thomas Frank was managing PSG and Luis Enrique was managing Spurs today, I think we'd have lost by more goals than we lost today. I think we'd have lost in, normal play today. Our manager won that battle, but they had better players. And it was as simple as that. If we see this as a pattern that goes on into the league and we start going, all right, I've seen this 3 or 4 times in a league season and in a couple of cups, then I'm concerned that this is a pattern that the manager is responsible for. But based on today in isolation, I don't think that's anything Frank needs to worry about. I don't think it's anything to do with him. We just got beaten by a better side who had the ability to turn a game on its head when they didn't deserve to.
Yeah, I agree. It comes to penalties. Solanke scores. Martina misses the early advantage with Spurs before Bentancur drills us home and puts us in front. And it's followed by Ramos, who also scores before he stares out the Spurs fans. We're back all square. Van de Ven has his efforts saved by Trevelyan. And then obviously, again, the advantage hands to PSG. Tell sends his spot kick wide. Lee beats Vicario. Porro's up. And to be fair, Porro did really well under pressure to score his penalty. But as we know, Mendes scores. It meant PSG did win the game. Again, as we said, the 4 penalties to 3. We just ran out of steam. And again, when you look at the overall game itself, I think it's hard to be critical of the team over 90 minutes. I think if anybody said you're going to draw 2-2 at PSG, you know, with a new manager, fairly, again, a squad that we know is going to be changes to it in the coming days or the coming weeks that we hope, and a new captain. We're all telling ourselves it's going to be okay because, again, we've chosen to go with another new era now. I think we're also on the last one of Spurs. Are what, sixth manager in the last however many years? So you have to kind of recalibrate to go again, under somebody different. I mean, when Tej was here for the appointment show, I think Jim was on that one as well. I mean, Tej was saying again, it's, you've got to build yourself up again for a new manager, hearing new comments, hearing new quotes, hearing a new philosophy. And
it's true. But like we said, Rick, he doesn't look as new as some of the previous ones, right? It looks like his system, for whatever reason, whether it's a combination of he has an ability to impart knowledge, which is easier for footballers to digest, or his squad have that ability, or it just is a happy kind of amalgamation of that squad meeting the manager that is going to make them flourish, whatever it is. And to be honest, we don't even need to question it. It's working. We don't look like a team that's played 5 or 6 games together, right? We just don't. And so the future is really bright. Again, Darren said it so many times and so eloquently. We have every reason to be proud, excited, happy, buoyant, jubilant, confident moving forward into the new season, because if this is the beginning of this era, then our ceiling really is potentially the very top.
Yes, I do agree.
If we're given a few little, couple of little...
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, on that point, let's see where we are with those couple of little and something little and all these little things.
We don't dare finish the sentence, do we?
No, we can't finish the sentence. Let's quickly to tell you where we are in terms of those couple of little and hopefully something little coming your way. We know Spurs at the moment, it appears all the focus at the moment is going on Eberechi Eze. That appears to be what we're hearing, what we're seeing at the moment with Spurs. And at the moment, the big thing that's coming out is around this whole thing around the fact that Tottenham are at the moment leading the race of Eberechi Eze. He's a less pressing concern for Arsenal right now. That's from David Ornstein, who says Eze was being looked at when there was a possibility of Ethan Nwaneri leaving Arsenal. He, of course, signed a new contract, and it means that Eze is a less pressing concern. The left side is an area that Arsenal are thinking of as a priority, but that mean they'd have to look into departures. So that is why it's difficult in terms of the fact for Arsenal looking at Eze, because they need to sell first before they can buy, which does mean it's more favourable in Tottenham's camp at the moment. But we're always conscious of saying that can change. That can change. And obviously, we've got less than a couple of days now if Tottenham do want to go in for the release clause of Eze, which I believe does expire on Friday. So it's all systems play for Eberechi Eze at the moment. Spurs, we appear, are in the driving seat. But at the moment, just to be clear, haven't got a fee agreed with Palace. And there's nothing to suggest at the moment that is close. We have to be able to say that is the situation. In terms of Savinho, we're hearing suggestions that Tottenham are going to be stepping up their interest again and are set to bid again. Man City are insisting that they are only interested in offers of 50 million and above. Anything else will simply not be entertained. City do need to sell a number of non-homegrown players in order to meet their European quota for the upcoming season. So that is where we are on those two guys. But it's very late in the UK. I just want to do one quick thing if I can. I want to quickly just hear, it's a minute clip from Cuti Romero, who is now confirmed as a new Tottenham captain. We want to get those guys' thoughts on that, and then we are going to close the show. Let's quickly hear from Tottenham's new captain. It's been a busy day the last 24 hours. Cuti Romero is Spurs' new captain. Let's quickly hear from Cuti.
Thank you. Thank you so much. The first, not like I speak too much with the telecamera, but I'm very happy to be a first captain on the club. It's amazing for me, big responsibility for me. Nothing changed, always speak with the players for the training. Before the start of the season, also speak a lot with him. He's a good coach. Nothing. Thank you for this also. He's 5 seasons here in the club. I'm very, very, very happy to be a first captain of this beautiful club. No, don't like speak too much. It's more go into the train, go into the pitch, and put my 100% in every game like this. For me, it's another big night for the club, for the player, for everyone here. Enjoy this moment. It's football, no? The most important thing is all together always. Yeah, we want to win.
We want to win. There you go. That was Christian Romero. Very quickly, Guy, to close it on that point. New captain, first interview in English. Let's start with you, Dal. Thoughts on that for you? Any real surprise it was Romero? Was that what you was expecting?
I think he's the leader. And if we are going to be a bit more of an aggressive side, having that leadership from someone who plays that way naturally is good. But also, it may calm him down as well a little bit. To go, I've got to lead responsibly. He was part of the leadership group last season and he did well. Maybe the captaincy has been given to him also to make him happy because he was a player that I didn't think would be here at the start of this season. He was one that I believed that ran his course with Tottenham and winning the trophy was going to be his farewell and he was going to play for Atletico and get sent off every other week. But no, he stayed and I'm glad that he's here because he is a player, as Jim quite rightly said earlier, when people talk about world-class players, he is one that is referred to in that reference when you talk about who's world-class at Tottenham. So having him here this season, having him lead the team, if we get the player that we know we can, and if you perform to the level, as he can, he's tremendous. And I hope that he keeps his head because when he plays, we really get a lot from him.
As we actually saw earlier in that game this evening, the fact that he was on the score sheet and gutting for him, of course, it wasn't on the winning side. T, just come to you, then we're going to close with Jim if we can. Frank said on the appointment of Romero as leader, captain, I had a good conversation with Kuti. He's going to be our captain. He was very honoured, very happy about it. It's a big thing and he should be able to lead this wonderful club out on the pitch and throughout this season. I think he has all the right qualities. He leads from his behaviour on the pitch, driving the team forward in every way. And outside the pitch, he's always pushing the team. Your thoughts on Christian Romero, Tej, being announced club captain for, of course, his upcoming campaign?
Yeah, I'm very happy that he's the captain. I've spoken numerous times about Christian Romero. And actually last season, I posted something on X that if he did end up leaving Tottenham, I wouldn't be heartbroken about it because he was always that player. Again, this has been spoken about numerous times on this show and millions of Tottenham fans have stated this all over the world, that he was a player that always seemed to put country before club. He never really loved Tottenham. That changed, I think, under the Sonny era. I think he was very, very close with Sonny and that helped. I also think that even just that level of responsibility, again, helped curb certain enthusiasms that didn't help the club. It was repeated poor behavior that annoyed me and frustrated me about Christian Romero. So if he had left, I wouldn't have been heartbroken. However, to Darren's point, the fact that he's now been made first team captain, it is like giving the naughty boy in class the hall monitor's badge, and so I do think it's going to help with his maturity, with his decision making. And so I'm really happy to have a world-class captain wearing the armband for Tottenham Hotspur. I just hope that he can continue to build upon what that means, what that should mean to him, what that should mean to his family, and what that means to us fans. You now must become a Tottenham captain in every sense of that word and put your club before anything other than, of course, your family. But as far as football goes, it's Tottenham first, and that's it. So with that, I will be delighted. Thank you so much for having me on the show, Rick. To all the Tottenham fans out there, I'm so sorry that we didn't manage to get it over the line tonight. I feel your pain, of course I do. But thank you for all the positive comments. You've been great tonight, the viewers and the listeners. I think your comments have been excellent, man. I'm happy and proud to be a Tottenham fan. Looking forward to the season ahead. My love to you all. Thank you so much.
Please bless you, mate. You're a superstar. And I say that for all of us here that love the club. And obviously, we had an incredible feeling 2.5 months ago. We were all together 3 months ago now. It's crazy how quick that's gone and where we are again. Jim, let's let you have the last word on this point with Romero's captaincy. Frank also touched upon the point that he wants a leadership group as well. He did say that not only will one wear the armband, but the fact is that he wants to have as many leaders as possible on that field, and he hopes to have 4 or 5 appointed in the leadership group in the next few weeks. He said he will make that decision once the window comes to an end. He said, I can't do it on my own. I need to put a superb coaching staff around me, which is what I've got. And I will name that group after the window is closed, which gives me time to assess everything. But Kuti is leading us. Your thoughts on Kuti being named the captain, Jim?
Yeah, look, he's when on form. There's two different types of best players you have in a team. One is the best player over the course of a season, and one is the best player when they're on form in an individual match. And Romero is the best player when he's on form in an individual match for us. He has the highest level of ability. He's the most natural leader. And he's got this rare thing that some leaders do where you can tell he's fully committed, but he looks utterly calm. Whereas other people, to know they're committed, they have to be gritting their teeth and sweating buckets. You just know Romero's on the ball and focused and he's there. And in Bilbao, he stood out in that way as our leader. And I truly feel he was one of the key reasons we got that over the line, was his leadership skills and his calm aura he brought. Let's not forget, though, only a couple of months ago, he was dropping an Instagram Easter egg that he kind of insinuated he might want to leave, like now. And he wasn't happy with the direction the club was heading in. And there were links to Atletico Madrid at the time, which were getting stronger and stronger. And he seemed to be, he was pushing towards that. Now, we don't know. We don't know that for sure, but that's what it looked like from the outside. And then Atletico went for some other players and he was staying. And I think Frank's done what a good manager would. He's gone, right, how do I get this person fully back on side of me and my plans? Step one, more responsibility, show my faith in them. I'm committed to them and they're committed to me. He's done that. He's appointed him before the rest of the leadership group because he wants Romero to have an influence on who's a part of that leadership group. Yep. So he's putting him in more responsibility to keep him happy. And I think Tottenham's dream goal would be for Romero to sign a new contract. I think there's an outside chance, certainly not a likely chance, but there's an outside chance of that. And the best way you can do that is by saying, well, if you're here, you're a massive part of here. If you're over there, you're not a massive part of over there. So it's kind of up to you what you want to do. And I think this puts in a position with Romero where next season, it's not, maybe he will look at Atletico Madrid and go, maybe that's food for thought now. Obviously, if a Real Madrid come in, what can you do? There's certain clubs you just can't stop when they want your player on 1 year left on their deal. But I think it provides a stability. You're not going to have all the uncertainty now for 6 months of, oh, where's Romero going? He comes across quite settled and he's in this major role. And I think we'll be able to keep that settled atmosphere around him as our leader for this season. And then the storm will all kick up end of the season when it's the transfer window. But for now, Frank's brought calm, put our best player on his day in a leadership position and kept him happy. So spot on, right decision.
Yeah, I agree. Listen, guys, thank you ever so much. I know it's a late night one, and I do know, again, we've got to be ready for these because we've got Champions League coming back soon, which we're all excited about. Look, and we're going to be very excited to take you through that journey back on Last Word on Spurs of those Champions League games. And please God, it does end with, of course, Spurs lifting the biggest European trophy of them all. But look, unfortunately, as we know in life, there's lessons that you have to learn. There's a nature of having to take on board what part of the journey you have to go through. We had an incredible moment, 2.5, 3 months ago, and we were so close to having that yet again in the space of a few months. But I want to hopefully feel this makes us hungry for more. It drives us on for more. But in typical Tottenham fashion, we're going to have to work for it. And I know I might not feel like it right now. I said at the top of the show, I want to end on that point. There is a lot of positives that have come out the back of that 94 and a bit minutes. It might not feel like it now, but I absolutely promise you, before Spurs kick off at Burnley, you will go into that stadium at the top of Spurs Stadium, like me and Jim are going to be, and Dale might be, and obviously T. Blessing will be watching as well from a distance. You're going to feel you are going to feel confident going into that stadium. I promise you, before that ball is kicked, you will take your seat with belief that Thomas Frank is building a team here, but he's going to need to be supported. And unfortunately with that, we can't do that. That comes down to the ball. So Daniel Levy, Ian, Nick and everybody, we always know you're watching. We always know you're listening. Back the manager, support the manager, give him the tools for the job. I want to say a massive thank you to the wonderful Teja Amini. Tej, thank you so much. You're a superstar. We love you very much. We'll see you very soon. You're a diamond. Thank you. The wonderful Darren Hart, 2 of the finest actors in the world, and Jim from Oso Spurs. And Jim, obviously fresh on the scene. I had a lovely message coming for Jim, which I do want to read if I can. Just a couple of these. Positive, negative. The performance demands investment. Basuma ban wasn't a big deal. Would have taken those minutes in the final 8 minutes. Listen, we'll see. Combe corrects it. Says TJ Ramini, always the voice of reason and sense of when emotions are running high, a voice of calm, impartiality and solace. What an amazing bloke. We have here, Frank was superb, leave you letting him down. I have to agree on that point. And it says here, T-Junkie123, big up, gang. Just want to shout out, Jim. Been an absolute breath of fresh air to the Tottenham YouTube scene. Keep it going, bud. Lovely words there for Jim, who's a pleasure. And again, as always, lots of love for Dow in the comments. Many glad to see him back. And as always, we love having Dow back on here. We'll see him a lot through the season. Dow, thank you so much. Jim, thank you so much. Guys, listen, we're at the start again of another roller coaster, another journey. Strap in. Check out Oso Spurs, T Talking Tottenham, Tej on the quizzes. Make sure you're following that on Instagram. They're always popular from us all. Keep safe, keep well. We'll be back with you soon. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.